So that finally concludes our 2023 Formula One season. And did it end dramatically? I mean, I guess there was some dramatic moments and there were things to fight for. So that made the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix a lot more exciting than it usually really is. The biggest conclusion I have from this Grand Prix is it does not deserve to have the final place. We all know why it's there, but honestly, it's just not a great racing track. It's also early in the morning for me, particularly. It's a very early race, so you need a lot to bring that joy out, you know? Brazil definitely needs to be the final track. That's my biggest conclusion from this race. But overall, in the 2023 season, let's talk about what happened and the standing changes and who's where and how it all ended up unfolding for a pretty underwhelming season, but a lot of exciting things in it, if that makes sense. As for exciting things, I'm very thankful for you all. I mean, from my end, this was a ridiculous year. 13,000 subscribers, over 2 million views. You guys are the best, and slowly we're growing this channel into something huge, and hopefully that continues into 2024. A lot more content to be coming. Obviously, like during the winter, I'm going to be covering a lot of stuff and still going to have a lot of videos for you guys, so don't go anywhere. Never off season for me, but we are now in the off season, and how did it end off? Well, in lap 1, Leclerc had to jump, but when you don't have much to push for, why go for it? Leclerc makes a good point at the end. All I cared for was P2. Me winning the race really wouldn't have meant much, or getting really the lead for 3 to 4 laps, and then Max passing him. He made a good point. At first I was like, why is Leclerc checking out? But he's not. He actually pulled off a couple of smart moves. Should he have had the run in, is that turn 4 or 5? I think so. He had the inside line. He didn't need the chicken as much as he did. He could have definitely sent Max a little wide, but he had a lot more to lose than Max did. Max wins the race. That's it for him. But congratulations to the Red Bull team. Honestly, 19 wins with Max. Jeez, 19 wins. This guy did not lose this year. Oh my God. 2 wins by Perez, 1 by Carlos. I mean, it was a year of Max Verstappen, the most dominant season with the most dominant car, but really the most dominant driver. He was phenomenal this year, and he pulled off what I think very little drivers in this sport could do. He was amazing, and congratulations to Max Verstappen, the team at Red Bull, and Perez for finishing second. Honestly, that's another big achievement for that team, and it was a great year for them, so that's nothing to be undermined. Definitely a dominantly fun season for Red Bull. Obviously, it wasn't fun for the fans, but in general, they pulled off like a great year, so you have to commend it, regardless of how you feel about the team. But there was that still fight for P4 between Alonso, Leclerc, Norris, and Sainz, which ended in a very funny fashion. I'll talk about that too. But yes, Leclerc doesn't go for the couple of moves, and then Lando is kind of making his way forward, but then gets kind of halted, can never pass Leclerc. Leclerc was staying within a second. It was a pretty competitively looking race, but we all knew Max was ready to dash off at any moment. To be fair, he didn't have the pace to really just fly off, even whatever tire. We know Ferrari on the hards is just like a horrible combination, so that was never really going to happen. Alonso and Tsunoda fighting. Yuki, gotta commend him. He did really good. I don't know why they went for the 1-stop. I think they actually had pace on merit to go for a 2-stop and try and keep Alonso back and a couple other people, but it was going to be a tricky race regardless. Williams was nowhere, so that fight for P7 really was up for grabs with AlphaTauri, but they didn't end up completing it. By the end of the race, Yuki, I think, finished 8th. He still got ahead of Hamilton, which was impressive, because Hamilton kind of had a little oversteer moment and caught the car. The car was not working for Lewis. Lewis was clearly disappointed. George finishing up in that P3 was huge for him. But the biggest moment that we all want to talk about is obviously Leclerc pulling off a Lewis Hamilton. If you don't know what I'm talking about Lewis trying to hold back Nico in Abu Dhabi in 2016. Now, he didn't do it to the extent. Lewis was literally slowing down purposefully to get more cars involved in the whole entire fight there. For him to potentially win a championship, he needed cars to overtake Nico, but that wasn't going to happen, and it wasn't really the most fair. Would I have done it? Absolutely. If I was in Lewis's position, I would have done the same thing. I would have been throwing everything balls to the wall, trying to get that championship. So I don't think anything bad of it. And Leclerc was smart. He put the slipstream for Perez. Wasn't enough. I think the gap at the end was 3.8 seconds. So it wasn't enough for them to actually secure it. Mercedes gets second. And that's a real big thing for Mercedes. They got second in a year where the car was just honestly just a piece of garbage. It was not a good car. Inconsistent, oversteery in some moments, understeery in others. The car had no balance. The car had no straight line speed. it was a bad car. I would say the Ferrari car overall was the better car, but honestly, Lewis and George, particularly Lewis, were on it in almost every single Grand Prix. So for that reason, that's why they kept it. Lewis got P3, could have even fought for P2 if the whole entire disqualification thing didn't happen in COTA. So they kind of got screwed over there, but they definitely deserve the P2 position. Ferrari do look like a great car coming into 2024. They've been learning on that car. The actual tires in that car seem a lot better. Leclerc was driving outstanding. And with Leclerc's finish and where everything ended up resulting, we had a P1 for Red Bull, obviously. That doesn't even need to be talked about. Mercedes, Ferrari, P2 and 3. P4, McLaren. McLaren was ahead of Aston Martin, who was P5. Those are really the top 5 contenders going into next year and who can actually bring the fight to Red Bull. I fully believe we will get a way more competitive season in 24. This will not ever happen to this extent again. Could Red Bull still win next year? They could, but they will not win it, 21 out of the 22 races? No way, Jose. It's not happening. It was too ridiculous in the first place, but they had the best car. And in the constructors actually, in the Drivers' Championship, Alonso finished P4. And that is just, you gotta give it to the old man. You gotta give it to him. The old man that I love. I'm saying that as like a joke, obviously. Alonso is just so damn good. To finish P4 in a car that I would say after Zandvoort was like the 5th fastest car on race pace, it just shows you his level-headedness to keep the car in positions that it doesn't need to be in. While the car did get a lot better, they used the new upgrades for this race, so that is important. They had a new rear wing. I mean, they were slow in that straight, but besides that point though, the car was still good. Tire wear was good. They had pace. They started a little bit further back behind. They were just as fast as Ferrari and McLaren, but they never actually had the chance to catch them, nor did really any other team. It was kind of just sticking of positions, and the strategy kind of helped out with overtakes. Otherwise, snoozer of a race, but that's your typical Abu Dhabi. But Alonso P4, Leclerc P5. Now, this really tells me something about Sainz, but Leclerc P5, Norris P6, and P7 for Sainz. Now, Sainz obviously had a very unfortunate Las Vegas. With Las Vegas, he would have finished ahead of Alonso and Leclerc. That was very lucky from both their ends that Carlos didn't compete. Carlos had to go back from a penalty. Then he had to do the same thing that Alonso had to with really a tire. Actually, a funny quote came out by Alonso. He said, "I'm not making donuts, am I?" asking his engineer. "No, Fernando. Anyway, I did a first lap in Vegas, no problem anyway." I like that he says that because the dude did pull off a nasty donut in Vegas that did not help him. But he did do it. And for that reason, Sainz now finishes 7th. He also pulled off a donut. So both of them got their donuts in Vegas a little early. But this shows Leclerc's real top level of driving. Him in qualifying, I'm going to say right now, I don't think anybody's competitive with him in qualifying, dude. With whatever car you give this guy, he puts it up into P1. If you give Leclerc the car to actually win races, he will win them because he is the fastest driver on the grid. Does that mean he's the most best with tire strategy and conserving of tires like a Max Verstappen per se? No. But overall, in one lap pace, he is ridiculous. He has just that like extreme pace to him. It's so impressive, and I see why Ferrari loves him so much. Sainz is the more level-headed driver out of the two. That's how he got 200 points. He was always consistent, but Leclerc got the bigger chunks of points, and that's why he finished ahead. Norris even finished P6 in a car that was so bad in the beginning of the year is also just as impressive. It's more of like he was consistent throughout the year. I do think he threw away a lot of races. I think my next video is actually going to be about Lando tomorrow. But overall, it was exciting. Everything really from other than P1. It was an exciting year, but I think 24 will bring us a lot more fortune. In a year where it was pretty boring and we made this much success on this channel, I expect next year to be a lot bigger. And you guys know I'm going to be covering a lot of stuff, so make sure you're subscribed. Please like the video, comment. It would mean a lot for me. You guys mean the world, and peace.